Do you think the Polish government has gone about this in the right way?
So I think that the interpretation of the constitutional court in Poland has been the correct decision, primarily because it protects the rights of people with disabilities. And previously, under the previous law, they were discriminated against. It was not legal to terminate children in most instances, but you could terminate children because they had a disability, which I think is fundamentally unfair and unjust. And so I think that although it's got lots of negative backlash, that was a fundamentally right decision. And people with disabilities across Poland and indeed across the world are very, very pleased with this decision because it validates them as worthwhile members of our society that deserve the same protections that everyone else receives.
See, well, it would be unfair and unjust if we were talking about terminating children, but we're talking about fetuses here. And you say that this decision has been applauded, but even the president of Poland has come out against this, saying that, he's been unsettled by this.
Well, the president's a politician, and he has to deal with, the way that people react to things and public opinion. But you say that these aren't children.
People as well.
I'm sorry, just what you said about fetuses not being children. When was the last time you said to somebody who's pregnant, "Oh, wonderful, you're a mother of a fetus," and you say, "Wonderful, you're a mother or father," or "Wonderful, the baby's coming"? It's a baby. A fetus is a term that we use in medicine. But the majority of unborn children who are diagnosed with disabilities are diagnosed at quite a late stage in the pregnancy when they're almost viable or even they are viable. And so to say that that's not a child, not a human being, is absolutely abhorrent.
Well, we can discuss the terminology at another later date, but what about a woman's right to choose?
I mean, it's quite important, the terminology, actually, because if you dehumanize a group of people, it allows terrible injustice to take place. So it's quite important that we don't say that people aren't human beings when they are.
Well, we're not saying they're not human beings. I simply put it to you that they're fetuses and not children. I think children, if we're going to talk about emotive language, suggests like they're living and breathing and walking around, whereas we're talking about fetuses and we're talking about
they have a heartbeat,
a woman's right to choose as well as being unborn babies.
Yeah.
But the essential point here is, what about a woman's right to choose?
So, I'm not aware of any human right to end the life of another human being.
But what about a woman's right to choose to not give birth?
Okay, so what does abortion actually involve? I think it's important that when we're discussing this that we actually go into what it involves. So a late-term abortion, which is almost always what happens with children with disabilities, typically involves the insertion of forceps through the birth canal into the uterus, the clamping down on the skull of the baby, the crushing of its head, the decapitation of the baby, and then subsequently the dismemberment of its body. So that's how you end up not giving birth if you are already pregnant with a fairly developed fetus. It involves quite a violent, brutal act performed by a surgeon, and then the surgeon has to put together the pieces of the baby's body in order to...
Do you not feel that this new law will cause more harm, though, if women, as we heard from our previous guest there, as well as this charity in Berlin, are forced to go to other countries to seek terminations, or perhaps even into back streets in illegal procedures?
Right, so I think that absolutely when you introduce a law like this, you also have to introduce support for women in these difficult situations, because they are difficult situations and they can be scared. But there is a lot of support available in Poland. There was a law passed in 2016 specifically called Zażyciem to provide support for women in these difficult situations, providing financial support, providing emotional support, providing a personal assistant to help them with making arrangements to look after the baby. There are also lots and lots of charities out there that are actively supporting women in these difficult situations to help them to raise children with disabilities. And I think that the one thing I can agree with some people who are protesting in the streets in Poland is that, yes, we should absolutely be, as a society, working towards being more inclusive, more supportive of people with disabilities, so that they really are treated as valued members of our society. And so absolutely, we should all be marching, campaigning for more support. We shouldn't be campaigning for the ending of their lives prematurely just because they're different.